Sarah Ferguson, once celebrated as the fun-loving, free-spirited Duchess of York.
Love you.
I'll see you later.
She was a breath of fresh air. She could handle the press, and they just loved her.
But today, Fergie is disgraced, drawn into a scandal that has almost broken the monarchy, all because of a desperate need for money.
She began to go wild with her spending habits.
A struggle that started long ago when the tabloids reigned supreme.
Diana, Fergie, Charles, the Queen. Literally, you could buy a Ferrari with one good picture.
Fergie's money troubles made her easy prey for the biggest sting in royal history.
She'd been had. Sarah was there on tape, you know, and those words haunt her to this day.
Fergie fell victim to notorious journalist Mazhar Mahmood, known as the fake sheikh.
There was an aura about the man, the finest investigative journalist in the country. Once he got you, once the hook was in, he was merciless in reeling you in.
The fake sheikh caught Fergie apparently selling access to Prince Andrew for £500,000. Her reputation was destroyed.
The fake sheikh with Fergie scandal rocked the royal family and got headlines all around the world.
Sarah Ferguson, former Duchess of York, the ex-wife of an ex-prince, is packing her bags, disgraced and alone.
I don't know where Sarah will go. Her daughters are sure to help her. Sarah wants to be near her girls, she wants to be near the grandchildren. That's, you know, what's keeping her going at the moment.
Fergie has crash-landed in a position that she forever has been hoping to avoid. She has basically lost everything, but it perhaps was inevitable that it would come to this.
How did it come to this? To understand the scale of her downfall, we must go back to the scandal that started everything, the fake sheikh sting of 2010.
What Sarah doesn't realise is that she's being filmed, and she goes back to a flat that's been wired up for sound, and she's filmed as they negotiate the deal.
It's a moment that changed the course of her life and set off a chain reaction from which she's been running ever since.
He was a con man, and the whole point about con men is you don't know they're con men.
Fergie was in serious debt and desperate for cash when News of the World journalist Mazhar Mahmood caught her on hidden camera, apparently offering to sell access to Andrew for £500,000.
£500,000 when you can, to me, open doors.
New Prince Andrew?
Yeah.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
Fergie's disgrace in 2010 would have been unthinkable nearly 40 years ago when she first married into the royal family. Long before the fake sheikh scandal, Fergie was celebrated in 1986 as the newcomer who brought fun to the formal House of Windsor.
The royal family liked Sarah. The Queen especially adored Sarah because she had a huge love of horses. And she was a breath of fresh air. She didn't take herself too seriously. She was great fun.
On the 23rd of July 1986, Sarah's wedding day, Queen Elizabeth II made Andrew the Duke of York, and Sarah became the Duchess of York.
A very treasured title. It had actually been the title of the Queen's own father. So rather special.
The whole world were watching, 500 million globally. Anyone who was anyone was there, from rock stars, actors, politicians, Elton John, Nancy Reagan, Michael Caine, Estee Lauder. And Fergie, she loved every single minute of it.
The marriage began well.
Both of them had this very strong sense of adventure, of fun, and they kind of brought each other alive.
Dare you?
You're a monster. Oh, God, don't fall over the top of the wall.
You got Charles, Di, Andrew, Fergie. They were like the incredible fabulous four. Diana loved Fergie being there. When she had Sarah next to her, it was a real giggle.
Becoming a royal wasn't an easy transition for Sarah.
Her life clearly had changed. She'd moved from her little flat share to living at Buckingham Palace. She was in Andrew's quarters, but he wasn't there.
And Andrew's job in the Navy sent him away for long periods.
She wasn't allowed to go and move in with him on the naval base, supposedly for security reasons. And so she began to feel very isolated.
With just her credit card for company, Fergie went on a retail therapy spree.
The fashionable dresses that were ill-fitting and terrible taste, but unbelievably expensive.
See the back. Back is lovely, very simple. This will swirl when I dance, won't it? Yes, it's lovely and full. For the Queen's birthday.
The jewellery, the travel.
Shortly after the wedding, flying home from New York first class, she had 51 pieces of luggage. One suitcase just had coat hangers, and so she began to go wild with her spending habits.
It was a way of making her feel happier.
Sarah's spending was out of control as she buckled under the pressure of becoming a global public figure.
Being thrust into the public eye like this it was difficult for Sarah. People began to criticise her weight. She was called the Duchess of Pork.
Thin ankles, thin wrists, thin waist. Good calves. And the rest help.
Some royal experts believe that her wild spending could be rooted in the trauma she experienced as a child when her parents' marriage broke down.
When Fergie was 12, her mum went to Argentina. She just ran off with a polo player.
Susan Ferguson herself was inclined to get into debt, being very extravagant, not listen to advice, was quite hot-headed and impulsive. And so you can see many of the characteristics of Sarah actually coming from her mother.
I think money for Sarah was her security. That safety net, that blanket was money. I think of that little girl who didn't have her mum. That security was taken away when her mother left her.
Fergie's lavish lifestyle caught the eye of the press, who cheered her on.
The more dresses she bought and the more she spent money on jets and flew across the world and wore diamonds, the press were lapping it up, the public were lapping it up. And I think that encouraged her to spend with impunity.
She would have secretaries who would just go on Concorde to deliver a bit of paper, one person just to wrap up presents.
It didn't bother her, the idea of wasting things, buying presents for people that were never opened, shopping, you name it. This was Fergie on steroids.
Meanwhile, cracks were beginning to show in her marriage.
She was never seeing Andrew, who was on the Navy base all the way in Dorset, and he rarely came to see her. They were apart for months and months on end.
She missed him. She loved him. He missed her. So it put a lot of strain on the relationship very, very early on. Rumours start. Marriage isn't doing too well. Is she seeing somebody else?
She became friends with a guy, John Bryan, who was a Texan, worked in the financial world. He's charming, he's intelligent, he's witty, and great fun to be around. And he gave Sarah attention, something that she had been really, really missing.
In 1992, while on holiday with Bryan in Saint-Tropez, Fergie underestimated the lengths the tabloid press would go to for a front-page story.
Then, of course, what happens next is Fergie's seen lying on a sunbed with her two little princess daughters playing around her, and Johnny Bryan is sucking her toes. She's topless as well, which is perfectly fine, except, you've been caught by the paparazzi.
Fergie's toe-sucking disgrace hit the newsstands when she was at Balmoral with the Queen.
It was absolutely the worst moment for Sarah. So humiliating, so shocking, but she'd done it all to herself.
No longer the luxury or privilege of an aircraft of the Queen's flight, for the Duchess just an ordinary scheduled flight to Heathrow. Buckingham Palace say the departure was as planned before the publication of the photos, which showed her half naked at the poolside with her Texan financial advisor.
The royal family were furious, and the future of her marriage was taken out of Sarah's hands.
Suddenly, the nice girl from next door was seen as someone who was potentially very dangerous to the future of the monarchy.
This is trashing our hard work. This is absolutely reversing the image that we've worked so hard to create.
Fergie became a royal outcast, and as the tabloids revelled in her downfall, she was beginning to look vulnerable.
Her ex-husband, who she still loved and she was still friends with, was walking around the corridors of palaces with her daughters, and she was on the outside with her nose pressed up against the window looking in.
Coming up, Fergie's need for cash leads her into the path of an apex predator.
Hit lists were actually drawn up, targets to go for.
Ruthless journalist The Fake Sheikh was about to strike.
Fergie's down on her luck, needs money, will do basically anything, including selling the royal family. So that was the tip.
Today, Sarah Ferguson is a royal no more. She suffered a dramatic fall from grace after being drawn into a toxic scandal that has done untold damage to the royal family. All because of a desperate need for cash.
She is really not on the invite list. She's below Z-list now. She is really on her knees.
But Fergie, the royal Houdini, has faced financial hardship before. In 1996, divorced from Andrew, Fergie's royal funding was cut off and she had to look elsewhere for cash.
She now needs something else, and there is America.
It was time for Fergie to monetize her royal status.
She wasn't Fergie, the disgraced ex of Prince Andrew. In New York, she was the Duchess of York. The Americans love titles and were very impressed by that. She kept that title, and it opened doors.
It's reported that in 1996, she received at least £800,000 for her autobiography, My Story. And as her books sold like hotcakes, she signed a deal to be the face of Weight Watchers, worth $2 million a year.
Sarah really is the queen of reinventing herself. You know, one minute she was called Duchess of Pork. The next minute she's being offered Weight Watchers.
My dream is to run along a beach in a nice black swimsuit, right? No, swimsuit, okay?
But across the pond, back at home, she was a total outcast. The press were writing awful stuff about her, and the family didn't want to know her.
Once again, her spending reached outlandish levels.
She still wants the driver, she still wants the assistants, she still wants the lifestyle of a princess. And she really can't afford that.
Her growing need for cash would make her vulnerable.
Within a few years, her debts were running to about £4 million.
I think she just wanted to go on being the Duchess of York. Well, why shouldn't she spend? That was her attitude and that was her downfall.
What kind of roles would you like to play? Drama. That's what my life's been.
Sarah was on the up in America, doing so well. She set up her own company, Hartmore, to just, to deal with all the money that she was earning and all the spending. But before Sarah knew it, this company was in huge debt.
Fergie had put more than £1 million of her own cash into Hartmore, so when the company collapsed in 2009, it hit her hard.
Hartmore was a sort of umbrella organisation for all her activities. Eventually, it, in effect, goes bust, leaving her with a huge debt. And I think this is one of the pivotal moments in her life.
The company had debts of £600,000. Fergie was personally liable for any costs she put under her own name, like the wages of her personal staff.
The biggest threat, if you like, to Sarah's financial well-being was her former personal assistant, Johnny O'Sullivan.
Fergie's friend and former PA, Johnny O'Sullivan, had been with her for almost a decade.
He was a delightful man who absolutely adored Sarah, would do anything for Sarah, and he was there, 24 hours a day for her.
Fergie owed Johnny tens of thousands of pounds in unpaid wages.
He was a loyal servant, but he also was owed a huge amount of money of Sarah, and she felt she had to pay him back.
Fergie's financial advisors put together an arrangement with her creditors who agreed to receive a cut-rate percentage of what they were owed. But for the deal to go through, they all had to be on board, and Johnny wasn't playing ball.
He was owed $100,000, and he wanted that money. He wasn't going to take, 30 cents in the dollar. This was money he'd worked very hard for, and he wouldn't back down.
Johnny stood his ground. He had leverage over Fergie. Without his agreement, the deal couldn't go through, and she could be declared bankrupt.
She couldn't go bankrupt because that would then, bring more humiliation to Andrew and the whole royal family. She couldn't have that. So what was Sarah going to do? She had to get out of this pickle.
Sarah's desperate need for cash to repay Johnny O'Sullivan and escape bankruptcy was plain to see, and someone very dangerous to the Duchess was waiting in the wings.
She owed money all over the place. She was stressed out, and that made her very vulnerable to somebody like Mazza Mahmood.
But who was Mazza Mahmood, and why did he target Fergie?
Mazza was a reporter on the News of the World who was good at investigations and was tenacious, which is why I like working with him.
It was an age, and indeed it still is an age, in which it became fashionable to try and catch public figures out, and he was very good at that.
But he wasn't just any reporter.
There was an aura about the man. Mysterious. The man who can never be photographed. The man who's always with bodyguards. The finest investigative journalist in the country.
At that time, newspapers had far more power than social media. Mazza Mahmood was the investigations editor at the biggest English-language newspaper in the world.
The News of the World, we're talking about 5 million plus in its heyday, 5 million plus copies sold on a Sunday.
We had a huge budget. We had 3.1 million a year on features, another 3 million on news.
It's now a disgraced publication because of the hacking scandal, but in its time it was hugely respected, actually often led the news agenda, fearless in the way that it reported the rich and powerful.
The prime targets were celebrities, sports stars, and royals.
The competition was intense to get stories. I mean, literally there were hundreds of photographers chasing the royals at any one time. Diana, Fergie, Charles, the Queen, they were worth billions. Literally, you could buy a house, you could buy a Ferrari with one good picture. Maz was the number one guy, the best reporter on the paper, brought in a result week after week after week, really set the agenda for what people talked about.
But his methods were devious.
He lures you into a false sense of security. So you're thinking he's this businessman going to give you a deal, but really he's recording you for the News of the World, and you're going to be plastered all over the paper for doing a dodgy deal.
What Maz was very astute and clever at doing was to appeal to the baser instincts of people, the greed, the desire for power, desire to mingle with a very fabulous, wealthy, amazing guy. Once he got you, once the hook was in, he was merciless in reeling you in. And his sense of timing was perfect. He knew exactly when they'd drop their guard, and bang, he was in there.
Mahmood was the top dog in a cutthroat environment at the News of the World. If you didn't deliver, you were out of the door.
About 40 or 50 people would get sacked every year if you didn't get 12 stories a year, just one a month. Editor comes out, it's like the Roman emperor, like out, people walking out in tears.
The power and the pressure to score bigger and better stories led some reporters to the limits of the law.
We had a huge amount of power. So we broke the law, but we broke the law to keep the nation safe.
Many journalists at the News of the World believed in their mission to expose wrongdoing by any means.
It doesn't come that easily to everyone to lie and cheat. Do what you have to do to keep Britain safe. And believe that, like Mazza, who actually believed that. And if you can believe that and you're driven to do it, you might keep your job and make a lot of money.
Raised in Birmingham, the son of Asian immigrants, Mahmoud created an alter ego that exploited the stereotype of wealthy Arab royalty.
Oil was the big thing, and people regarded Arab countries as being very wealthy.
There were a whole series of sheikhs who were coming to London, who were looking for business opportunities. Mahmoud was operating often under this cover of basically some sort of Asian businessman or a bit of foreign royalty. And it's amazing how, using the same device, how many people he caught.
And it wasn't long before he caught out a British royal.
Well, amazingly, the fake sheikh had actually already stung the royal family 10 years before he met with Fergie.
Very early on, Mazza Mahmood caught Sophie, Prince Edward's wife, in a sting. She had a PR company at the time. Mazza would meet these people several times to bring them into the fold. And Sophie, during the course of several meetings, basically bitched about members of the royal family, and also said she could use her connections to help with the PR for this crazy retainer of thousands of pounds a month. And it was like, you idiot.
And that laid the template, as it were, that royalty was not immune.
10 years later, Fergie had obviously forgotten that this man had rocked the royal family, had obviously forgotten what he looked like, and was doing exactly the same thing.
Following the sting on the Countess of Wessex, Mahmoud sharpened his act.
Let's get away from the bloody sheikh. Let's get away from a Bedouin sheikh who's got no website, because people aren't going to fall for this for much longer. So they developed this sophisticated businessman, multinational, 60 countries, malls, shipping, nightclubs, hotels, you name it, it was all in there. That's part of the mechanism that was used to draw in Fergie.
Over time, Mahmoud honed his fake sheikh act into a perfect formula.
You set up a cover of a fabulously wealthy individual or company, or a sheikh. You go to the target and you ask them to promote said company, and you're going to pay them a lot of money. Many instances, they drew up a contract from the lawyers saying, your fee will be, 500,000, whatever. You will get first-class return tickets. So that would have been dangled in front of you as well, before you even got to meet. No expense spared. And of course, there came the wining and dining. And you can imagine copious amounts of champagne, Louis XVII brandy, lobster, surf and turf, everything that the guest wanted. And on some of the stings, which ended up in court, you would get the lawyers for the defense questioning Mahmoud in minute detail in the box how much alcohol was consumed, and the amounts were enormous. Have another one, have another one, whilst not drinking himself, because obviously I'm a Muslim, I don't drink. That is basically the crude format. Everything took that format.
Many high-profile names fell victim to the fake sheikh stings, including former England football manager Sven-Göran Eriksson. Just before the World Cup in 2006, on a yacht in Dubai, Sven was recorded offering to quit as England manager if the sheikh bought Aston Villa. Sven even said he'd sign David Beckham. Of course, the deal never happened. The scandal led to Eriksson leaving his job as England boss after the World Cup. Now, the fake sheikh had his sights set on the financially unstable Duchess of York. Coming up, desperate to escape bankruptcy, Fergie walks straight into the fake sheikh's trap.
She knew that Sophie had been caught in a sting. What was she doing, being wined and dined by this mysterious man? She fell for it.
Sarah Ferguson is in turmoil, exiled from the royal family in public disgrace.
Her life has just turned upside down.
And there is one man whose name runs through Fergie's troubles like a stick of rock, Mazza Mahmood, the fake sheikh.
she was on a target list.
There were a list of people you really wanted to catch. These were people that you knew would go on the front page immediately.
In 2009, when Fergie was on the brink of bankruptcy, Mahmoud heard rumours going around Fleet Street about Fergie's activities.
These rumours reach the News of the World and they decide to mount a sting operation.
Mahmoud infiltrated Fergie's inner circle via her trusted friend, who was Fergie's personal psychic, although Fergie never saw it coming.
She consulted her very good friend and psychic. I mean, supposedly no venture she would go on without consult. She was like the oracle, you know, like the old Greek oracle. Shall I do this? Shall I not do this? Checks were made, yes, and they were fully expected to be made. Does this exist? These people exist? Once those checks were made, this would be a good business opportunity for Fergie to be involved in. And that's how the two came together.
Mahmoud had shed the Sheikh's robes and was posing as an Indian businessman in need of an introduction to Prince Andrew.
When a businessman and not a sheikh, he used the nom de plume of Khan.
On Tuesday the 13th of May 2010 in New York City, Fergie met Mahmoud for the first time. They had dinner at the exclusive Mark Hotel. Reportedly, over a vodka and tonic, Fergie told Mahmoud she could bring him to her home at Royal Lodge and introduce him to Andrew. Then, reportedly, Fergie followed up the dinner with a phone call to Mahmoud, where she referred to Prince Andrew with a code name.
Sarah talks about Billy, her code name for Prince Andrew, how, you know, he's a completely honourable man, but if you scratch my back and I'll scratch your back, and I'm sure we can do business together.
The News of the World had a strict policy when it came to phone calls.
Everything was recorded. You didn't take a phone call at the Screws without it being recorded, because everyone denied they said it immediately. As soon as they saw it in the paper, and you go, well, here's the video.
During the call, Fergie reportedly told Mahmoud she'd spoken to Billy, who was happy to meet with him. But for the meeting to go ahead, he had to give her £500,000.
Sarah was in a hugely vulnerable position when the fake sheikh came into Sarah's life. In huge debt. She was an outcast from her family. She had this huge financial burden on her shoulders. And then when she got the call from the fake sheikh, who was a businessman who wanted to get access to Prince Andrew, she thought, well, this could be the answer to my dreams.
The next week, at a private members' club in London, they met again for dinner. A hidden News of the World photographer captured them at the entrance in a candid long-lens shot. The image appears to have been carefully composed to provide evidence of the meeting.
If Sarah had wanted to introduce him to a business person, I would have been fine. Why shouldn't she? She didn't. She wanted to sell the introduction to a business person. That's completely different. That is crossing a massive line.
After a luxurious dinner and a £95 bottle of Burgundy, Fergie rode in Mahmoud's limousine to what she thought was his apartment in Mayfair.
And that was wired from top to bottom. There would be cameras to get all angles.
Now, this is much harder to do 15, 20 years ago because cameras were big and they needed big batteries. So you had to plan.
There'd be cameras in the pelmet of the curtains looking down. There would be cameras to your left, to your right. They would be concealed, usually in vases, or it could be a TV remote. There'd be sound recording devices put under the coffee table. So, you know, if all else fails, you've got the sound.
Tuesday night, the 18th of May 2010, in that Mayfair apartment, she was captured in grainy secret camera footage, allegedly selling access to Andrew.
Next, on to the next thing. £500,000 when you can, to me. Open doors.
Leave Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
But I thought I'd give you $40,000.
Yeah.
Which I've got in another deposit, which is in my safe. But how I give it to you? I'm not back. I'll bring it back.
Fergie looks astonished in the secretly filmed footage at the heap of cash worth $40,000 that Mahmoud has placed on the table.
He knew when to use the cash bait. He knew that if I put the cash on the table, the physical presence of that money would be the manifestation of that greed, of their greed, and they would go for it.
What made it such a scandal, the fake shake with Fergie, was the natural way in which she sold her ex-husband was, for me, what made it so shocking. And it was so dark and late at night, it felt extremely seedy.
Mahmoud carefully guided Fergie with questions to ensure she explicitly stated the terms of their alleged deal and how the money would change hands.
So you 500,000.
Yeah, but that's in wire transfer.
That has to be wire transfer. I mean, I've got to see.
That's a wire transfer that's completely above board and goes straight to wire transfer. And then that is, then you open up all the channels, whatever you need, whatever you want. And then that's what, then you meet Andrew and that's fine.
Fergie later admitted that she'd been drinking.
She was slurring her words a little bit. She was saying whatever popped into her head. She really should have been behaving better with a total stranger.
Fergie seems to have retained sufficient awareness to insist upon secrecy.
He's the most amazing people.
I know, obviously.
And he's just chosen my way.
It throws me away, fantastic. Well, and you throw them away.
Yes. But I've never said that.
No. I've understood it.
Yes. And that is the key to him.
Sarah was doing something very specific. She was selling her royal connection. She was selling Andrew for money.
Fergie clearly picks up the bag containing $40,000. She carried it away in the bag.
That was different. That was a completely new level.
But for Fergie, visibly relieved in the footage, the threat of bankruptcy and the stress of owing money to friends and employees was finally over.
We've seen the pictures of that money all laid out on the table, I think up to £40,000. For Sarah, it was a bit like of a cha-ching relief. I've got some money, I can pay someone off that I owe. Look, he just wants to get to know Andrew. I'll make sure that I manage this and I'll be free of debt.
Days later, Fergie flew to Cannes for the film festival. That Saturday night, she was dancing at supermodel Naomi Campbell's 40th birthday when the phone rang. The next day's front page of the News of the World would carry the headline, "Fergie sells Andrew for $500,000.
What's a hard-up duchess to do when a businessman you hardly know offers cash in return for meeting your ex?
This is not the first self-inflicted wound the Duchess has suffered, but it is the most serious. Her reputation may be damaged beyond repair.
Fergie's spokesperson confirmed that the footage was authentic and released a statement apologising for a serious lapse in judgment, also denying that Andrew knew about the alleged deal to sell access to him.
Clearly, she had no sense of self-preservation. And yes, she fell for a sting. But the crucial upshot of that was that she was proved to be prepared to sell her royalty or her ex-royalty for money.
I think it was a completely 100% legit story. To expose a royal member of the royal family for just wanting money at any cost, to sell out her family for money, totally in the public interest, and the public were massively interested in it all the way around the world.
She was a liability before, but this is the point where the royal family realised she had to be cut off, and also her debts really needed to be addressed.
Buckingham Palace followed up with a statement denying Andrew's involvement. Taking the bull by the horns, just a week later, Fergie was interviewed on US television for Oprah Winfrey's iconic chat show.
I must have been a little bit worse for wear, and I think I just went, well, if you're going for 40, okay, well, if you want to do business in the future, then, to be honest with you, I can't even think where my head was.
Fergie gave Oprah a raw and vulnerable account of a woman clearly overwhelmed by money troubles.
We've heard $40,000. So was it 40 or 38?
Well, it was 40,
Okay.
but there was 38.
Okay.
He gave me 40, but that was all going to my friend.
And you were doing that for a friend?
Oh, well, yeah, but there's, for me...
Is that what happened to that money? What happened to that money?
It's gone back to the newspaper.
The interview was screened around the world. People's opinions about the embarrassed Duchess were divided.
It was a real, mea culpa. I am so sorry. Sarah's got into trouble. Sarah was drinking a lot at the time. She's in the gutter.
People feel very sympathetic towards her, feels that she's been a victim, feels that she's learnt the lessons, and want to give her another chance. And this is a sort of technique that she's used repeatedly, both before and after, to kind of get herself out of these problems.
Sarah is an enigma. She is utterly baffling. She appears to have this extraordinary way of not recognizing the magnitude of what she has done.
Coming up,
Miss Mummy, what would you like to say? Why did you tamper with the evidence?
as Fergie's finances threaten the monarchy, the fake sheikh himself ends up on trial.
But he ended up a con man who was convicted. That is his legacy now, a convict, criminal.
On the 13th of May 2010, Fergie was captured in grainy covert footage on multiple hidden cameras, allegedly selling access to Andrew for £500,000. Looking at the bundles of cash, which she carried away as a down payment, her relief seems clear. In the aftermath, Fergie was quizzed about what happened to that $40,000 deposit. She spent a day with journalist Michael Usher, giving an intriguing interview to the Australian Channel 9 news show 60 Minutes.
I mean, did you take the money? At one stage you had $40,000 cash sitting in front of you. Did you take it?
Absolutely, yes. And it was given to me and I got it in the car and then returned it straight away.
It was 2011, the year after the scandal broke, and Fergie was plugging a new book containing her account of the fake sheikh sting. The interview appears to spin out of control in this startling footage.
Once the scandal broke?
As soon as I knew it was a scandal, not once it broke, Michael. But don't try and trick me now, because I'm not going to play this game. Delete that bit. John, can you just delete it, please, that bit? Because I don't want to go down this...
Duchess, I'm asking very fair questions of you.
No, it's too tabloidy.
That clip shows the real Fergie. Where the mask drops, that shows the real Fergie. And that was not the Fergie that was presented to Mas Mahmood. The one that is a little bit tetchy, a little bit suspicious. You can see all of those going through her mind, through her facial gestures.
Sorry? What's your question?
In the book, you write that the News of the World scandal almost helped you, that it let you look at your life.
I'm very grateful to being in that position in a way when I hit rock bottom, because of it, it woke me up.
Despite the interview being about a book by Fergie addressing the fake sheikh scandal, she appeared to struggle when confronted with its impact.
How big a wake-up has it been?
What more can I say? What more can I say?
The biggest.
You can't possibly...
Yeah.
You can't possibly... of course it has.
In her book, Sarah Ferguson states that the money was to avoid the threat of bankruptcy and cover the unpaid wages of a longtime friend and trusted staff member, reportedly Johnny O'Sullivan, to whom she owed tens of thousands of pounds. Fergie has always categorically denied offering to broker an introduction to Andrew, as has been claimed, or that she met the fake sheikh with the sole purpose of selling access to Andrew. She wrote that she only mentioned to Mahmood in passing that he might meet Andrew.
One of the consequences of the sting operation is that basically people stop wanting to do business with her. And so speaking engagements are cancelled, a television series is cancelled, and she's even more desperate for money than she has been. It's a very, very difficult point in her life.
Fergie's completely on her uppers. She has to sack all her staff, and she's got nothing left, no reputation, no money, nothing. Maz has done this. Maz has created this disaster for Fergie.
Bankruptcy for Fergie would further humiliate the royal family and expose private financial dealings to the public eye.
Particularly in America, if you were declared bankrupt, it's quite incredible the details that you find out.
It would have horrified the royal family had it happened, and it would have been another scandal.
Another risk was that Fergie could write a lucrative tell-all book.
I suspect that Andrew would have said to the late Queen, look, we've got to help.
The Queen and Prince Andrew move in. They're looking at ways in which she can cut her expenditure.
Meanwhile, the fake sheikh was about to experience a public shaming of his own. In 2016, Mazhar Mahmood was sentenced to 15 months in prison for conspiracy to pervert the course of justice.
Miss Mahmood, what would you like to say? Why did you tamper with the evidence? Say to Talissa. Would you like to apologise for Talissa? Are you sorry? You're guilty of lying to secure a scoop. What do you say to that?
His story, accusing pop star Talissa of selling cocaine, backfired when her trial collapsed. Mahmood was found to have tampered with evidence.
I urge both police and News UK to investigate Mazhar Mahmood and his team and to put an end to his deceit in pursuit of sensational stories for commercial gain.
Mahmood's career and reputation were destroyed, casting doubt on his entire body of work as a journalist, including the Fergie sting. Fergie sued the newspaper publishers for £40 million in lost business, claiming that the fake sheikh scandal had led to a collapse in her earnings from public speaking and media work, but proceedings were discontinued and the lawsuit never made it to trial. Fergie's solicitors say that the matter was resolved to the benefit and satisfaction of their client, while News Group newspapers insist that the story was both true and in the public interest.
Even though, Maz is now discredited, he's a convicted criminal, disgraced journalist, whatever you want to call it, that story still stands up on its own merit. And you can see the huge public interest that's there. That's one of his, best stories.
Though Fergie bounced back from the fake sheikh scandal, now she is adrift and in disgrace. Could she reinvent herself one more time?
I'm excited to even stand here, let alone be alive.
The future for Sarah doesn't look very encouraging. I think she's run out of her 9 lives. She's just sold a house for just under £4 million. So she may have enough money to buy something new or to at least rent. But the future, I think, looks very uncertain to her. And this is for a woman who is now 66.
I don't actually think it matters anymore that she's not a royal or not being called the Duchess of York. I think Sarah is Sarah in her own right. She's known globally, and the British public might even love her more without the title.
Sarah Ferguson's entire career has consisted of things going wrong, recovery, that going wrong, recovery. If you want to study in bouncing back from failure, Sarah will give it to you many times over. And I would not be at all surprised if even after this last ghastly scandal, she just bounces back.